saying, isn't there, that a week is a long time in politics. Well, I'll tell you what, 2 weeks is a very long time in politics. What have we seen? We have seen Jeremy Corbyn, a long-time socialist campaigner, elected as Labour leader. We see him sitting on the front bench alongside another veteran campaigner and leftist, John McDonnell. We saw on the day he was elected 50,000 people march in London, not just against racism, but actually saying refugees are welcome here. After years of refugees and migrants being scapegoated, being demonised by all politicians, actually to their shame, many in Labour as well as Tories, but 50,000 people defied that and marched of the streets of London that day. Then this week, snout rage, piggate. The serving Tory Prime Minister, not opposition, not just some lowly activist, the Prime Minister of this country, we're told that he put his penis inside a dead pig's head as part of a jolly jape, apparently. I'm sure we've all done that at college, haven't we? If we're a student. I'm sure it happens at Manchester Uni and Manchester Met all the time. In a posh boys' club, because they're all men and they're all posh. And this is what they do as their sort of bonding ceremony. I think the idea is that you're always going to mind each other's back for the rest of your lives if you do these things. Clearly, sometimes people break ranks when they're so bitter about not being given a ministerial position in return for all the money that he gave to the Tory party. But what I thought was fascinating about the difference between these two events the last 2 weeks is how the media treated it. Which is most shocking? Left Labour person gets elected Labour leadership, or the thing that I don't want to have to keep repeating. I'm sorry, the BBC didn't even mention the word pig on the news on Monday morning. I listened to the Today programme on the way into the Socialist Worker office. Not a mention of a pig. Just something about some sort of personal allegations. But when it came to Jeremy Corbyn, there was a steady flow of attacks on him. Oh, look, he didn't sing the national anthem. Oh, look, he didn't wear a matching, he didn't wear a suit. His jacket didn't match his trousers. As one person on Twitter said, yes, the dead pig incident does sound rather unfortunate, but remember, Corbyn had his tie on wonky the other day, so they're basically even. So, what we can see from this is, and it is hilarious, we can spend the whole 25 minutes on pig jokes. I'm not going to do that. Read some columns in Socialist Worker for that side of things. But what it does, it says something profound about British political structures. So, nonsense aside, what does it tell us? It tells us that the media, that whether that's all aspects of it, newspapers, TV, radio, the lot, the Westminster establishment, the politicians and the like, and the public schools, and Oxford and Cambridge, which they call neatly Oxbridge, for those in the know, i.e. you've gone somewhere so elite that you make up a name for it because it's not like any other ordinary university, that all of these institutions of the British establishment breed a class of people who feel entitled to rule over us whatever they get up to. And you see, they're so complacent and smug that they just think they've got us on our knees. And actually, when the Tories won in May in the general election, many of us felt, oh my God, they're on the ascendancy, didn't we? It was an utter shock. But they feel that we're not going to say anything about austerity. They think we're not going to say anything when they scapegoat refugees, or when they say they're going to bomb Syria and get us involved in a new war. But what happened with Corbyn's campaign and victory, suddenly they were shaken. Remember, when Corbyn stood, he didn't even have enough support amongst Labour MPs to get on the ballot paper. He had to get right-wing MPs, had to sign up to put him on the ballot paper, and it was in this patronising sort of way of, oh, let's have a proper debate. Like patting him on the head. Let's get Jeremy on there. It'll just open up the debate a bit. And to be fair, all of us thought that's all it would be too, and so did Jeremy Corbyn. I worked with him on the Stop the War Officers group. And the Friday morning we'd had our meeting, and afterwards I interviewed him for Socialist Worker and said, it's great, you're on the ballot, how does it feel? He said, well look, it was just my turn to throw my hat in the ring. Diane Abbott's done it, John McDonnell's done it, it was my turn. It'll just raise a bit of debate. And that's what we all thought. And now look, he won. He didn't just win, he won a thumping victory. In every single section, he got 250,000 votes, and in all three categories, Labour Party members, the £3 supporters, and the trade union affiliated people, he won more than twice as many votes as Andy Burnham, who was the next candidate behind him. That's how completely decisive his victory was. And therefore, he has not only stunned himself, the rest of the left, you know, working class people who fought, but he's stunned the Labour establishment and the grandees who cannot disguise their horror at the idea that he's now the leader. And I thought what was fascinating was every time Tony Blair or one of his supporters or his pals got out on the telly to make a speech about why people shouldn't vote Jeremy Corbyn, trying to mock him and scorn him and his supporters, or trying to whip up fear about what it would mean, to be honest, it only made people support Jeremy Corbyn more. You know, if he's against Blair, and Blair's so worried about him, then actually maybe we should support him, maybe we should pay the £3 and get involved. That's how big, really, the victory was. And I think that, really, you know, what it means is something different is going on in politics. And it was signalled by what Jeremy Corbyn did soon after within minutes of actually winning a victory. He goes out the back door of the conference chamber and walks straight across the road to get on the platform of the 50,000 strong refugees are welcome here demonstration and speaks to the crowd. Now, what Labour leader's done that? Actually, all we've ever had from Labour leaders in recent years is, oh, immigration, people don't like it, so we've got to be careful. Oh, we were a bit soft on immigration the last time. Well, I never noticed anybody being soft on immigration in recent years. In fact, most of them have wanted to attack migrants. So this is something different going on. And I think that when we look at it, what do we say? It means the ruling class has not won an argument in Britain that austerity is an enemy, that refugees are the enemy, that wars are necessary. These are arguments they thought they'd won, but they haven't won them. And it shows that people want an alternative. And I think that when you hear people saying about Corbyn and the people who went to his rallies, the thousands across the country that attended the 99 rallies he did in the lead up to his election, was, oh, it's a harking back to the 1980s. Well, some people here, I'm sure, weren't even born in the 1980s. And actually, the fact is, yes, I can see that. Frightening. But it showed they didn't get it. Because my experience of talking to people who voted for Corbyn and other people who were not in the Labour Party but who've been inspired by what happened, is they don't feel it's harking back, that it's new, it's fresh to have a politician that's not a robot, that isn't waiting for a focus group and an issuing text from head office before they give a response on something. There's somebody who wants to actually stand up for ordinary people. It's fresh, it's new, and actually is part of a phenomenon that we've seen across Europe, with the rise of new left parties like Podemos in Spain, like Syriza in Greece. This is part of that realignment, if you like, of people rejecting the old social democratic parties who have just gone along with the status quo. Now, the contradiction in Britain is that that has actually been born inside the very party, the mainstream social democratic party, not outside of it. That brings with it all sorts of other issues. But it is part of that same phenomenon of saying we don't want the same old politics, we want something different. But it's happened in probably the least likely political space in British politics. And basically what it is people are sick of mainstream politicians, people who they hoped would be better than that in the Labour Party, saying we need a bit of austerity, not as much as the Tories, but we still need some. You know, of course we're going to be nicer to migrants than the Tories, but hey, we're going to keep some of them out. You know, all of these things people are sick of, and this is what it shows, that Britain isn't different. Because one of the things, after the demoralisation of when the Tories won in May, lots of people said, Britain's not like the rest of Europe. Really, Britain is now turning more right-wing. Because not only did the Tories win a completely surprise majority, but UKIP, that racist, disgusting party under Nigel Farage, came third in terms of numbers of votes. So it was a frightening prospect, the idea that maybe Britain is different. Maybe it hasn't got any of that anger about austerity. Maybe it is people are going to sit back and let the attacks come. But you see, Corbyn getting elected isn't the end of the story, is it? By any shot. Because almost before the celebrations were finished, and in fact before they even began, the attacks on Corbyn have come from every direction, haven't they? And I think, you know, it isn't just the personal stuff, his tie, his clothes, it isn't just his personal relationships. You know, the fact that he had a relationship with Diane Abbott in the 1970s, for goodness sake, suddenly became worthy of front pages, as if this was a huge scandal. What's the scandal? But it managed to, they turned it into something that they wanted to attack him on. They went to absurd lengths. But not only that, you've got actually members of the ruling class openly declaring how horrified they are. I mean, people will have heard of the serving army general who said of Corbyn, he said, if he makes plans to emasculate, interesting word, emasculate, the armed forces, he said this could lead to mass resignations at all levels and the very real prospect of an event which would effectively be a mutiny. Now, I'm sorry, what happened to democracy? If Corbyn got elected as a Prime Minister, Labour Prime Minister, here's a serving general, not some old retired bod, whiskey sozzle, well, he might be whiskey sozzle, but somebody who's still serving, who's earning a wage on the taxpayers' money, saying that they're going to mutiny in the army. I mean, this shows just how terrified the ruling class are about any attempt to challenge their right to rule. And I think that when we look at those attacks, what I think was what is most disgusting is actually many of the attacks are coming from within Labour, aren't they? And actually within his own shadow cabinet, because the problem he has is the vast majority of the parliamentary Labour Party, of the MPs, are against Corbyn. And they want to undermine him, they want to wreck him, they want to break him. They want him out. And therefore he's ended up with appointing a shadow cabinet which has got enemies in it. And from day one, and his Deputy Prime Minister saying, you know, oh, don't listen to Corbyn when he wants to take you outside of NATO. We're not getting out of NATO. Don't listen to Jeremy Corbyn, says Hilary Benn, about he doesn't want to bomb Syria, because actually some of us are going to vote for the Tories to bomb Syria. So day after day, it's utter defiance from people to the right of him within the Labour Party, just saying, we're not going to listen to Jeremy Corbyn, we're going to do our own thing. And it's something that shows just how they want to push it. And even, to be honest, someone trying to attack Jeremy Corbyn from the left, when there was all of this stuff, suddenly, including some of the right-wing papers, saying, oh my goodness, it's terrible, he hasn't put women in the lead jobs, he's a sexist. Well, not only is the shadow cabinet a majority women for the first time, and believe me, I want more women in the big jobs, all the jobs, you know, I absolutely do. But to turn around and say the first shadow cabinet where there's not the majority women is actually sexist is turning the thing on its head. Would it be better if Liz Kendall had won? Who wants austerity? Who wants war? No, it's actually about politics. So therefore that sense of even trying to attack him as if it's looking like he's not left-wing enough, I think shows they will go to any lengths. But there are dangers. And I think the dangers are that in the sort of attempt to maintain unity within the Labour Party, to stop some of the right wing leaving the Labour Party to form their own party, in an attempt to maintain this broad church, which is what Labour is always defined as, the fact that you could have somebody who was homophobic as well as people who were anti-homophobic. You could have some people who perhaps express racist ideas about immigration, but you can also have anti-racist. It's a broad church. In the attempt to do that, Jeremy Corbyn can find himself retreating and compromising and fudging things in order to maintain the unity that will utterly undermine the very change that he wants and all those thousands of people who came to rallies and who voted for him want as well. And I think, you know, things like singing the national anthem, you know, I thought it was brilliant that he didn't sing. Why should we sing to these bunch of parasites? I'm sorry, it's a joke, isn't it? And we had, you know, I don't know, Harry and William today, you know, digging up a bit of land to help build some, you know, houses in London. It's sick. But honestly, it's not the most serious thing. And actually, you know, to his credit, John Prescott pointed out that as Deputy Prime Minister under Tony Blair, he never signed the national anthem. Did you ever hear about that? Was that on the front page of the newspapers? Not at all. But it's something, it's a stick to beat Corbyn. But those are on one level, they're symbolic. And I think it's important to do the symbolism, but so what, you know, one level. But actually important things like, say, the European Union. The same European Union that is letting people drown in the Mediterranean, crossing to go into Lesbos or cross to get to Sicily, or who are trying to get across the borders across Europe today. Desperate people fleeing war, violence, poverty, created by our system. Fortress Europe, the EU, are letting them die. And this is a thing that actually Jeremy Corbyn said he's against the European Union, it's a boss's club, I agree with him, and yet now he's saying, well, maybe Labour will campaign to come out. You know, these are more serious things that actually to backtrack on are actually much more problematic. And this isn't about the integrity of Jeremy Corbyn or other individuals, it's about the logic of being in an organisation that says, actually, we've got to compromise to make little changes. The big things aren't possible without doing this. We've got to, you know, hedge around and all the rest of it. And actually, what's shocking is some of the Some of the left within Labour and some of Jeremy Corbyn's most vocal supporters are joining in with this, saying don't be too left-wing. I mean, people will know Owen Jones, a Guardian columnist, who sees himself as a lefty, but he's saying he's a big thing about, you know, Jeremy has to go to look at business people as well, and has to can't just be for the have-nots, has to be for the haves. I'm sorry, we've had that from Ed Miliband. Where did that get us? And he's not electable unless he does these things. In fact, even Neil Kinnock's son, who's an MP, came out today saying he won't be electable if he's too left-wing. I mean, coming from the son of Neil Kinnock, how well did that go, trying not to be left-wing? Neil Kinnock, you know, has got nothing there. He can stand up and lecture about how to win. But when Owen Jones says, as a sort of lefty, supposed lefty in Labour, that we've really got to be aware of people's concerns about immigration, these are sort of code words, aren't they, for saying, actually, we can't just say they're all welcome here. That's dangerous. Working class people won't accept it. And it's a patronising view of working class people that says, number one, that people have got just a set of ideas that are unchanging that we have to pander to. And it's also an idea that people can't change, because I'm not saying all working class people are saying refugees are welcome, that all working class people are anti-sexist, anti-racist and all the rest of it. But I do believe that people can be won to those ideas. And I believe that it's the obligation of socialists to fight for those ideas and to lead. Not just to win votes, we're just going to be a little quiet about the fact that we support migrants. We're a little quiet about the fact that we're against homophobia. This is wrong. We have to be principled and stand up for the oppressed. We have to be principled and say people can be won to these ideas. And actually, the very fact of Corbyn's victory is proof of that. You know, and therefore to turn it on its head and say he's unelectable, when actually it's itself is an expression of being anti-austerity and being for something different. But when I said this, so therefore it's not about an individual's integrity, it's about the logic of a project. And what is the Labour Party project? The Labour Party project, as a project, not the people who've just joined and who want to get active, they want change, don't they? They want a better world. We all here want a better world, isn't it? The question for us is, how do we get it? How do we get a better world? How do we get a socialist society? How do we get somewhere that's equal for people, that there isn't war and oppression and inequality, that there isn't crisis, that people aren't. You know, there was a woman, I saw a film of today, a pregnant woman who was tear-gassed by soldiers on the border. Why is this happening in the 21st century? People say, look, this is the biggest exodus of people since the Second World War. And people said after the war, what did you do? Did you stand up for Jewish people that were being sent to camps? Did you stand up for refugees? What about the kinder transport? What about the people who wanted to come to Britain that the British ruling class wouldn't let in? These are questions people will ask us in future generations. What did we do? And actually, those are the questions we have to answer today. They're a hugely important historical moment for socialists in Britain today. And I think, therefore, I stand in support of Jeremy Corbyn against the attacks of the right, every time. But I tell you what, if we only do that, we are not going to be able to get the change that he wanted and fought for, but that the people who voted for him want to as well. Because Labour is there not to transform the system. It was set up, and it is there to get reforms from the system, to make it a bit better. And actually, for the best socialists in there, they want to make a system that will serve the interests of working class people. They rightly want that. But I think it is an illusion to see that this can be won through Parliament, that this can simply be won through looking up and allowing our betters, some of whom we think it's perfectly okay for somebody to do what Jeremy Corbyn did and laugh it off and still run the country, and, you know, have 50 crates of champagne have been delivered to conference headquarters here in the city, for them to celebrate ruling the roost over us while they cut benefits and tax credits and pensions and everything else. So if we're going to actually bring these people down, trying to fight for little tweaky changes within the system in which they're dominant is not going to win. And I think that I want to see reforms. I want to see the system get better. Every little thing we can do today matters. Real nationalisation, absolutely. Get profits out of it. Run the trains in the public interests. The getting rid of the benefit cap. You know, some of the shadow cabinets say they're not for it, but Jeremy Corbyn's come out today and said he absolutely still is for that. Good. We're going to fight for that too. We're on his side. But the danger is that all those people that got involved in the campaign and everybody else who wants to fight for something different end up simply being spectators to an internal battle within the Labour Party and a shouting or perhaps a very polite discussion across the benches at Westminster. That's not going to bring change. And actually, if we say that it does, we are actually doing a disservice to those people who really want to change things. And instead of having people being spectators to a parliamentary show, or just in terms of looking to one individual to change everything for them, however good he is, Jeremy Corbyn can't do this on his own. We have to say, we have to mobilise those people. Mobilise those people, because for me as a revolutionary socialist, for us in the Socialist Workers' Party, our ethos, if you like, is the emancipation of the working class. You know, our freedom for socialism is the self-emancipation. It's about self-activity from below, grassroots. It's our organisations. And I think that comes, you know, in terms of us fighting for people to march on Manchester. You know, that's what we want people to come and march on Manchester for, because we want people to get out there and see their strength on the streets. We support every strike and piece of resistance, because those are each of them a glimpse of people taking their life into their own hands and saying, you're not going to do it to us. That's why solidarity within the working class, again, for every struggle, not just the oppressed, but for every part of struggle, is something vital for future struggles. Not just because we want those things to win, but we do. It's because we've got a bigger vision of society than just a slightly better capitalism. Some fewer starving children, a few less refugees, a slightly less brutal bombing of Syria. That's not good enough. That's not socialism. We want everything to be a bit better, but I tell you what, if we stop at that, we won't even win those things. We have to have something more fundamental. We have to have a vision of a society that's utterly different to the capitalist society we live in today. And so capitalism cannot be reformed to serve the interests of working class people. It can't be reformed to do that. It is built on the idea that the vast majority of people are going to be exploited in the interest of that elite that sit around their Oxbridge clubs, getting up to I don't know what, to bond themselves so that they can stay in charge for the rest of their lives. This is why we have to look at the system and say, Corbyn's victory shows people want something different. And we haven't seen that. Socialism becomes a word that people will sit around and say, are you a socialist? It's put it into the mainstream, hasn't it? And that's a brilliant thing. But we want to do something with that. If we really want to make the Tories squeal, which is what we've got in the front of... We've protected the pig's identity. If we want to make the Tories squeal, then we have to do something else. We have to march on Manchester. We have to bring people here to your city and fight. We have to support every strike, every struggle. We have to defend refugees, not just because we feel sorry for them, because they're our sisters and brothers, and for... This could be any of us. It could be our families. Wouldn't we want people to fight for us if we were in that situation? We want them in this country. And I don't care if they're fleeing the Syrian war or they're just fleeing poverty. I think all refugees, all migrants are welcome here, and we have to fight for that principle. So I leave you with one thought. If we want to fight and if we want to win, we have to be organised. Socialist Workers' Party doesn't think this is something you just sit and watch telly and cheer on the goodies and boo the baddies. We have to take it into our own hands. We believe that each one of us has got the power within the collective, which is the working class in Britain, the working class across the world. Because workers make everything happen. Nothing gets built, cars don't run, coaches, trams, nothing works, hospitals, schools, without people like all of us here and our families getting up in the morning and going to work. That is the power that we have as a collective. We can be alienated and atomised at home in the places where we're powerless, but when we come together in street protests, but most effectively in the working class with strikes and organisation, we have the power to win. That's where I believe power lies. That's why I'm part of the Socialist Workers' Party that says that we have to fight for change in Parliament, but we don't rely on it because we have to win change outside of it. That's where the real struggles lie. And we've never got anything. Any of the laws change in Parliament haven't come from somebody being dead clever in how they ask questions, or dead clever about how they got people to vote. They came from struggles. The vote for men, working class men and women, maternity leave, weekends, sick pay, every single thing you can name, every reform, everything that made the world a little bit better for us was won through struggle. You don't see the statues to these people around anywhere. They don't have books written about them. Their biographies are, you know, they're not bestsellers. But it's struggles of the masses of ordinary people that have won us victory in the past. So I believe we have to be organised as revolutionaries. We want revolutionary change. We want to rip this system up and replace it with something completely different. That's what we stand for in the SWP. And I hope if there's any of you in here who are not a member, you'll ask about us, find out more about us, and I hope you'll end up joining us in the struggle tonight. Yeah.